Hello folks and welcome to GED Microlearning. In today's video, we're going to go through 50 standard GED math questions with step-by-step explanations to get you set up for 2021. Because I don't know about you, but I am ready to put 2020 behind me. After you finish these 50 questions, there's a few bonus questions at the end, a few word problems if you want to practice a little bit more. Are you ready? Let's go! Okay folks, so this is question number 1. Which expression below represents the distance between x and y on the number line? Okay, so if you've ever taken the subway or you've taken a bus, this question is going to be very easy for you and you already know the answer. So let's pretend that instead of this question, they asked you, what is the distance between your house, which is point X, and your job, and you're on the subway or the bus. This is now going to be very easy, right? So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's the distance on the number line. So the answer to this question is going to be 3. Now our job is to find out which of the expressions that they told us before represents the distance between those 2 points. So let's remind ourselves a little bit about how to read a number line. So remember that when you read a number line, you always have to start at point 0 right there. And everything to your right is going to be, when you add, you're going to be moving to the right. And when you subtract, you're going to be moving to the left. So option 1 of this question said A is minus 2 minus 1. So if you did that subtraction in your head, that would give you minus 3. And if you want to confirm using the number line, you could do it like this. So we're starting at minus 2, and they're telling us we're subtracting 1, which means we're moving to the left 1 spot. So there you go, minus 3. And we said the answer was going to be 3. So this option is incorrect. Option B said minus 2 plus 1, so that's going to give you, we're adding, right? So we're moving to the right. So that would be your bus moving like that to the minus 1, so that is also incorrect. And this is option C. Okay, so this is a little bit different because you'll notice that here you have these bars surrounding your equation, and these are called, whenever you have numbers in there, that's known as an absolute value. And what this means is whatever answer you get when you solve this, because it has these bars, it's going to turn into positive. Okay, so if we said minus 2 minus 1, we would say we're moving to the left, right, because we're subtracting. So the answer would be minus 3. But because we said we have these absolute value bars, which are going to turn everything inside them into positive, the true answer to this is going to be positive 3, which is the correct answer. All right, and let's do option D just out of completeness. So here we have minus 2 plus 1. Okay, so we're adding, we're moving to the right. That will give us negative 1. Again, remember that we have these absolute value bars here. So this minus 1 is going to turn into a positive 1. But we said the answer was positive 3, so this is incorrect. All right, so your correct answer for question 1 would be C. What is the value of the following expression if x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 5? Okay, so to solve this problem, what you have to do is you have to take these values here, so your x value, which I've put in blue, and your y value, and you have to plug them into this equation. All right, and that's what the equation would look like now. So before you solve the equation, remember that you always have to follow what is known as PEMDAS, which is here on the right, or you have to follow what we know as order of operations. So let's quickly review what that means. So in math, you have to follow an order, okay? Operations have to follow in an order. The same way, that you put your pants on before you put your shoes on in the morning. When you do problems in math, you have to do specific operations in a specific order. So you have to solve everything from left to right, and then you have to follow this thing called PEMDAS, which stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, adding, and subtracting. And multiplying and dividing are interchangeable. Okay, so if you have an equation where you have to multiply or divide, you can do either of them in any order. Okay, so you can multiply first and divide second, or the other way around. Same thing with adding and subtracting. All right, so let's go back to our problem. So we've put in our equations, our numbers into the equation. It looks like this. And following PEMDAS, we don't have any parentheses. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do are our exponents. And we have an exponent here. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're going to do. So 2 squared is going to be equal to 4. Okay, and now next thing we can do is multiply. All right, so you're going to go ahead and multiply that 6 by 2 and that 10 by 5. That gives you 12 plus 50 plus 5 plus 4. So your correct answer would be 71, or option D. For the number underlined below, select the option that corresponds to the listed place value. All right, so let's remind ourselves a little bit about place values. And let's look at everything that's to the right of the first comma. Okay, so if I told you that's going to be your pay for this week, that's very easy for you to know how much you're earning, right? $923. So you know that this place is the hundreds place, that's the tens, and that's the ones. Okay, so that's what they mean by place values, where each of these values falls. Okay, so what's to the left of that comma? So it would be thousands, right? And then the next value to the left, it's 10,000s, and the following is 100,000s. So you see that it's exactly the same thing as we saw in the first 3 numbers. Sorry about that. But you just have the thousands after it. And then this final number is millions. Okay, so in the question, what they're asking us is for that value here. So remember, that would be 1,000 where the 7 is. So the next one is going to be 10,000. The following one, 100,000. So the option that is correct is option B. Which value will make the equation true? X to the power of 2 is equal to the square root of 25. Okay, so here we have exponents and we have square roots. So before we dive into the problem, let's quickly remind ourselves of what is what. First of all, what is an exponent? So an exponent is a number that looks like this, and you'll notice that it has 2 parts. So one of them is this part, which is known as the base, and this little number in the top, the exponent, which tells you how many times you multiply the base number by itself. So if I gave you 2 to the power of 2, what that's telling you is that you're going to multiply 2 by itself twice. So 2 times 2, okay, which is equal to 4. If I told you 5 raised to the power of 3, what that's telling you is that you're going to multiply 5 by itself 3 times. Okay, so 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. All right, that is what exponents are. The other thing that we saw in this problem is a square root. Okay, in a square root, this number, to take the square root of this number, you essentially need to find out what number multiplied by itself is going to give you that number. Okay, so for example, what is the square root of 4? So what number multiplied by itself gives you 4? 2. Okay, so the square root of 4 is 2. All right, what is the square root of 9? What number multiplied by itself will give you 9? 3. What is the square root of 100? So what number multiplied by itself will give you 100? 10. Okay, so that is what square roots are. Okay. The other thing that you should know is that the same way that when you do an algebra problem, addition and subtraction kind of cancel each other out, exponents and square roots kind of cancel each other out. Okay, and I'll explain this once we get cracking with the question. Okay, so let's start working on the right side of the question. And the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to simplify that square root to kind of clean this up a little bit. Okay, so what is the square root of 25? What number multiplied by itself will give you 25? 5, right? So you have x to the power of 2 is equal to 5. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is that we want to clear up the left side of your equation. And what we said is that square roots and exponents kind of cancel each other out. So if I want to get rid of that exponent, what I have to do is I have to take the square root, okay? So we take the square root on the left. Remember that whatever I do to the left, I have to do to the right, okay? So there we go. So that gives you x is equal to the square root of 5. Option C. Multiply the following numbers and round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so here you can do this problem in two ways. If you are feeling pretty confident and you want to kind of get through these easy problems quickly, I suggest you kind of eyeball it first and see if you can figure out the answer. You can also do it kind of the long form way. Okay, so the way that I do this is that I look at each number. So I look at 3.5, and it's approximately 3. Okay, that's what that squiggly line means. And then I look at 4.7. Okay, so that's more than 4.5. So it's pretty close to 5. So I'm going to say it's approximately 5. So if I multiplied 5 times 3, that's going to tell me it's approximately 15. Okay, so my educated guess would be that the answer is 14.63. Of course, if you want to confirm this, you can go ahead and multiply it the long way. And here, you have to be really careful if you're doing it. If you don't use the calculator, make sure you don't mess up with the decimal points. Okay, so you just multiply the numbers across like that. That's what it gives you. And then what I like to do is at the end, just move your decimal point 3 spots. Okay, you end up with that. Remember that in the question is asking you to round to the nearest hundredth, which would be this position, okay? And you can see that we've already rounded up there. A container for cranberry juice holds 14 servings. If the serving size is 5 ounces, how many ounces does the container hold in total? Okay, so in the question, they've given us this information. 1 serving is equal to 5 ounces. And they're telling us that the container has 14 servings, and now we have to find out how many ounces there are. So this question is pretty straightforward. All you would have to do is, because you have 4 servings, and you know that there's 5 ounces per serving, all you have to do is multiply 14 times 5, and that gives you the amount of ounces in that container. So your correct answer would be B. Mike owns a hair salon. He has posted the following information about his services and prices. How many minutes will it take him to give 3 haircuts? All right, so this problem just kind of wants you to be able to take information from a table and, do a quick calculation. So what you do is you look first at the first column, at the service, and you look at haircut. And then you look at the next column and you look at minutes that it takes him. So you can see that it takes him 30 minutes to give 1 haircut. And in the question they're asking us, how long will it take him to take 3 haircuts? Okay, so all you have to do is multiply those 30 minutes times 3, and that gives you 90 minutes. All right, we're going to stay with the same table just to get a little bit more practice, but we've changed the question. So here it's asking us, how much less will a customer getting a facial pay compared to a person getting a wash and scalp massage with a haircut? All right, so we have a scalp and wash plus haircut for one person. So if we kind of see how much it costs, you can see it's $20 for the wash and scalp massage and $35 for the haircut. That gives us a total of $55. And then if we look below the facial, you can see that's worth $45. Okay, so all you have to do now is subtract the 55 from the 45, which would be $10. Okay, so the correct answer would be B. Jake can drive 300 miles in 6 hours. On Friday, he drove for 9 hours at that rate. How many miles did he drive on Friday? All right, so step one for this question is first, we have to find out how many miles he drives per hour. And the way that you do that is that you're going to take that information that is highlighted there in blue, okay, and you're going to divide those 300 miles by 6 hours. Okay, that's how much he drives in 6 hours. So if you divide 300 by 6, that's going to tell you how many miles he drives per hour. Okay, so he drives 50 miles per hour. All right, so step two is that in the question they're telling us he drives 9 hours. So all you have to do here is take those 50 miles per hour that we found out in step one, multiply it by 9, and that gives you the amount of miles that he traveled in those 9 hours. Okay, so he drove 450 miles. Option C. Miranda will use the 2 bolts shown on the right to assemble a bookshelf. How much longer in inches is bolt A compared to bolt B? Okay, so this question requires you to be able to work with fractions. So let's remind ourselves a little bit about fractions. So if you remember, the rule of fractions is that whenever you add or subtract a fraction, the fractions must have the same denominator. Quick reminder of what a denominator is. So remember that when you have a fraction, the top number is known as your numerator, the bottom number is known as your denominator. So as we said, whenever you subtract fractions from each other or you add fractions, these two numbers, the denominators, have to be the same. Okay, that is the rule. So in this question, they're asking you to subtract these two fractions from each other. And notice that the denominators are different, okay? So the first step is going to be to get these two denominators to be the same. And for now, we're going to ignore the whole numbers, okay? The whole numbers are the numbers in blue. We're going to ignore them for a moment. Okay, so we're just going to work with that. Okay, so what is the common denominator of 5 and 3? What is the number that they both divide by? Or that multiplied together gives the same number. It's 15, right? So if you take 5 and you multiply it by 3, it gives you 15. And if you take 3 and multiply it by 5, it also gives you 15. So that's the common denominator. So what we're going to do is there on the left, we're going to multiply that fraction by 3. And on the right, we're going to multiply it by 5. And that's what we get in the end. So we get 12 over 15 minus 10 over 15. All right, so the last part of the problem, we're going to bring down our whole numbers that we had ignored before, and we're going to solve this subtraction. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the whole numbers. So what is 3 minus 1? Well, it's obviously 2. And now what we're going to do is we're going to subtract these fractions from each other. So this is actually very easy. So for the top numbers, the numerators, you just have to subtract across. So 12 minus 10. And this bottom number, the denominator, is going to stay the same. Okay, so the answer is going to be 2 and 2/15 of an inches. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Option C. Okay, folks, so let me know what you're thinking about this quiz. If you like more quizzes like this a bit longer, please type more in the comments section. I'll know to make more videos like this. The next question is a percentage question. So it asks, what percentage of games did the Hawks win? First thing that you have to do is step 1, find out how many games they played. So you would look at your table there on the right, and you can see that they played 6 wins. They had 4 losses. That means 10 games in total. Step 2, how many games did they win out of those 10? Well, if you look there on the graph, there is 6 wins out of 10. Okay, so you would set up your fraction like this, where you put the number of games won on the top, divided by the total number of games played. That gives you 0.6. And if you wanted to get a percentage, you simply multiply by 100, and that gives you 60. So the correct answer is D. All right, so this is a probability question. Joe flipped a coin 60 times and recorded his results in the table below. What is the probability of him getting tails on a coin flip? All right, so the first thing that you have to remember is this rule of probability, or a probability ratio. How do you find it? Well, what you do is that you divide the number of favorable outcomes, or what you want, what the question is asking you, divide it by the total number of possible outcomes. So if we look back at the question, the total number of possible outcomes is here. It's 60. Okay, so that would be going here in the bottom of your fraction. And then the number of favorable outcomes, in this case, they said, what is the probability of getting tails? So you look here on the table here on the right, and you see that it's 15. So all you have to do is divide that 15 by 60. The next thing you do is simplify this fraction. Okay, so there is, which is 1 over 4, okay? And then this can also be expressed as 1 out of 4, or 0.25, or 25%. So your correct answer would be C. We're going to stay with the same question, but I'm going to change it a little bit, and I'm also going to change the answer options so that you get used to answering this in different ways. Okay, so in this case, they're telling us the same thing, right? He flipped the coin 60 times. And then they're asking us, what is the probability of getting him heads on a coin flip? And this time, instead of giving us a percentage or the number out of 4 flips or whatever, they're giving us, as you can see here, an answer with a decimal point. Okay, so how do we set this up? Same thing as before. So the total possible outcomes we said are 60. That's that number here. And then this time they're asking us about heads. So if you look at your table here on the right, you can see there's he flipped heads 35 times. So all you do is divide 35 by 60, reduce that, it is 3/4, also 3 out of 4, or you could express that as a decimal, 0.58, or as a percentage, 58%. So the correct answer is B. So the next question talks about permutations or combinations of things. Sabrina has to complete these 4 items this evening: homework, call home, dinner, and gym, in no specific order. How many permutations to those activities are there? So just a quick recap about permutations. So permutations tell you the possible outcomes or the sequence to several events. So here she's got 4 events that she has to do, and she could kind of put them in whatever order she wants, right? So she could go to the gym first. As we can see here on the left, she could call home, then dinner, then homework, or she could choose to call home first, then dinner, homework, gym, etc. So they're asking us how many possible combinations can she have. And the way that I like to think about it, which comes easy to me, is if you think about your calendar. Okay, so let's say you have your calendar and you have these 4 items that you have to do. So you have 4 things on 4 slots, 4 open slots on your calendar. Okay, so you would put the number 4 here. And then let's say that you go ahead and you have dinner first. So now you can see you have 3 slots left. So you would multiply that 4 by 3. Let's say you call mom. So now you have 2 slots left here. So you multiply by 2. And then now you have 1 slot left, so you multiply by 1. And if you multiply those 4 numbers, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, it's going to tell you the number of permutations that these 4 items have. So the answer is 24, or option B. In a recent election, 5 candidates ran for mayor. The results of the election are shown below. The 3 candidates who received less votes got what percent of the total vote? All right, so here what you have to do is look at the pie graph and select the slices that are the smallest, right? So 8, which is in blue, the purple, which is 10, and the yellow, which is 13. Simply add those across, 31%. Option A. Okay, so we're going to stay with the same circle graph, but we're going to make it a little bit trickier for you. So 4,600 votes were cast in the election. Select the expression below you would use to find out how many votes Joe Blob got. Okay, so Joe Blob is there in green. So it's useful to remind ourselves of this rule, which I really highly recommend that you memorize because it's going to make your life very easy. Okay, the percentage rule says that when you multiply the base or the total times the rate or the percentage, that gives you the part. What does this mean in this problem? So they're telling us in the problem that there were a total of 4,600 votes. So that would be your base. And then they're telling us that we are interested in finding out how many votes Joe Blob got. So the rate or the percentage of votes that Joe Blob got, if you look at the graph, is 21%. So you would multiply that 4,600 by 21% or 0.21, okay, expressed in a decimal fashion. And that's going to give you the part or the number of votes that Joe Blob got out of that total 4,600. Okay? And I believe, so that would be the correct expression. I believe he got around 900 and something votes. What is the sum of the exponents in the expression below? Okay, so this is the typical question that when people see it, they panic, but it's actually super easy. So exponents, when you add them or subtract them, basically the rule is this. If the base number is the same, you could just simply add these two numbers or subtract these numbers across. Okay, so in this case, x raised to the power of 3 plus 3x raised to the power of 5, you simply add 3 plus 5, okay, those two numbers, that gives you 8, and that's it. So it looks really complicated, but it's super easy. So in this case, if you add that 3 over here, plus 2, that's 5, plus 5, that gives you 10. Okay, correct answer is D. Okay, question 18, I'm staying with this expression, and I'm going to ask it from a different angle. So in this case, I'm asking, what is the sum of the coefficients in the expression below? So in this case, what they're asking is coefficient. So what is the coefficient? The coefficient is this number in front of the x value, okay, the number in front. Okay, so that's the coefficient. So in this case, it's 3. And here you can see that there's no number, but we have to remember that there's actually a 1 there. Okay, so if I asked you to find out the sum of these coefficients, it would be 4. So in this case, what is the sum of the coefficients? Now it's very easy, right? Here the coefficient is 4 plus 2. Remember there's a 1 here, plus 9. The total is 16. One angle on a scalene triangle measures 41 degrees. Another angle measures 27. What is the measure of the third angle? All right. So this is, again, something that you just have to drill into your head, because if you know this, all those triangle questions are going to be super easy. So remember that when you add up the angles of a triangle, everything has to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, that is the rule you have to know. So it has to look like this, right? Angle 1 plus angle 2 plus angle 3 is equal to 180. Okay, so they're telling us here, angle 1 was 41. Angle 2, they're telling us measures 27. And what we have to do is find out angle 3, which we're going to call x because we don't know what it is. So you set up your equation like this, and you end up with 68 plus x is equal to 180. So what we have to do now, normal algebra problem, isolate that x. How do we do that? You're going to subtract, oops, sorry, I guess I didn't do it. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to subtract 68 from here. Okay, so that cancels out. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So 180 minus 68, it gives you 112, which is option C. Okay, so this question is a little bit of geometry. So they tell us that Jake's rectangular patio is shown below. He wants to find out what the perimeter of his patio is to make a fence around it. Find the perimeter in feet. All right, so I don't actually remember if they give you these formulas in your geometry section, but if they don't, this is a rule that is worthwhile remembering. So the perimeter of a rectangle is the length of the rectangle times 2 plus the width times 2. Okay, so 2L plus 2W. In this case, the length is 20, so you would say 20 times 2 plus the width, which is 2 times 11. That gives you 62. So the correct answer would be C. Which of the following is equivalent to x squared, x squared minus 36? Okay, so in order to do this question, first let's remind ourselves of the FOIL method. So remember when you have an expression like this, what you do is you use this FOIL method, which is an acronym, which tells you in what order you have to multiply the different numbers. Okay, so first, which is here in blue, you would multiply the first two numbers, so 5x multiplied by 2x, and that gives you 10x squared, as you can see here. Then the second letter is outer, so you would look at the outer two numbers, so that's 5x and 20y. So multiplied together, that would give you 100xy. Then the I of FOIL means inner, which means you multiply these two expressions, right? So y multiplied by 2x gives you 2xy. And then finally, the L stands for last, which means you multiply these two last expressions by each other. So y multiplied by 2y gives you 2y raised to the power of 2. Okay, that is the FOIL method. Okay, so I'm just put a little kind of cheat sheet there on the right for you. So let's go through the different options. So is option 1 correct? So if you had x minus 36 in a parentheses and raised to the power of 2, what this is equal to, oops, I put it in the wrong order. Let me go back, sorry about this. It's this multiplied by itself, right? Like this. So if you multiply it out, that would give you x raised to the power 2 minus 72x plus 1,296. So that is incorrect. The second one, it's the same thing, but instead of having minus 36, you have minus 6. So you would break it down like that. And that gives you that expression, which is also not correct. Okay, option C. So if you multiply this out using the FOIL method there on the right, this gives you that. So you have that minus 6x plus 6x on the middle, which you would cancel out. And then that gives you x to the power of 2 minus 36. Okay, so that is the correct option. Just out of completeness, let's do the D. So if you multiply that out, you would have x multiplied by x, which gives you x squared, minus x multiplied by 6, which gives you 6x. So that one is also incorrect. All right, so that is a correct answer, which is answer C. All right, so this next question is a bar graph question. It says, below are the items sold during Christmas week. How many more cameras were sold than games and books combined? So let's remind ourselves a little bit about bar graphs. So on one of the axes, on the y-axis, you're going to have the items that are sold. Okay, so you have games, toys, books, etc. On the x-axis, you're going to have the number of those items that were sold. And the way that you read a bar graph is that you go to the top of the bar. Okay, so if I wanted to know how many toys you sold, you would follow that bar to the end, and then you would follow it down like that. Okay, so they sold 60 toys. All right, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so in the question they ask you how many more cameras were sold than games and books combined. So if we look at cameras, it's probably 110. We're going to take a educated guess. And then games, we have 20, and books, we have about 30. Okay, so we'll add those two together. You can see that games and books add up to 50, and then you have cameras 110. So all you have to do is subtract these numbers from each other, and you end up with 60. So your correct answer is C. All right, we're going to stay with this bar graph just to get a bit more practice. And it says half of the books sold Christmas week were on sale for $15. The rest sold for their full price of $20. How much did the store make on books Christmas week? Okay, so first of all, let's look at how many books they sold. So they sold about 30. And out of those 30 books, we said they're telling us that half of them were on sale, were sold on sale. So 15 books were sold on sale for $15 each. And then the other 15 books were sold for full price at $20 each. So all you have to do here is multiply, find out, the total price, right? So 15 books sold at $15 is $225. And then full price, that would be $300. All you have to do now is add these two numbers together. It gives you $525. That is how much the store made on books during Christmas week. Option B. The next question uses a histogram, okay? And I use this because it's the typical image that intimidates folks a lot, but it's actually really easy. It's like a bar graph, except that the bars are just stuck together, okay? That's all you have to remember. Okay, so the histogram below depicts zombie attacks in the area. How many attacks were reported in the period of May to the end of July? All right, so let's remind ourselves how to read this. So here on your y-axis, you have the number of attacks, or the frequency. And then on the x-axis is telling you the months, okay? So how many attacks did we have in March? How many did we have in April, etc.? And the question asks you to look at a specific number of months. So how do you read a histogram? As I said, exactly the same as a bar graph. So you would look, for example, let's look at September. So you would follow that bar to the top there, and then follow it to the left. That's telling you that in September there was 18 attacks. Okay, so very straightforward. And in the question it says specifically how many attacks were reported between May to the end of July. So this is the only part of the histogram you have to pay attention to. Okay, you can literally forget the rest. So if we look at May, so if we follow that graph to the top there and then to the left, you can see that in May there was 4 attacks. In June there was 10 attacks, and in July there was 6 attacks. So all you have to do is add these three numbers together, and that gives you 20, which is option A. Solve for x in the inequality below. So 4x minus 9 is more than 7. Okay, so before we start with this inequality, just a quick reminder of symbols that you will see in inequalities. So when you have this symbol there, here, looking like that, pointing to the right, it means greater than. If you have a line underneath it, it means greater than or equal to. And if it's pointing in the opposite direction, if it's pointing to the left, it means less than. And if you have a line below it, it means less than or equal to. Okay, so just remember that. And when you have an inequality, you don't have to move that symbol at all. Okay, so the step one for this is the same. You would solve the same way that you would solve a regular algebra equation. Okay, so you want to isolate that x on the left side. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get rid of that 9 on the left side. So how do you get rid of a negative 9? You add a 9, right? So you add a 9 there because that's going to cancel out. And remember, whatever you do to the left, you have to do to the right. Those two cancel out. You end up with 4x is greater than 16. And now all you have to do, step 2, is divide both sides by 4 so that you can isolate that x on the left side. That gives you x is greater than 4, okay, which is option D. Okay, so which value for x makes the inequality true? So x greater than 500. Okay, so what you have to do here is basically, this is a two-step problem. So the first step is to find out what these numbers, what these exponents are equal to. Okay, and then test if they fulfill this expression, right? If they're actually more than 500. Okay, so let's start with option 1. So it tells you 7 squared. So what is 7 squared? So remember that this number here, the 2, tells you how many times you're going to multiply the 7, which is the base by itself. So 7 to the power of 2 is actually 7 times 7, which is 49. And then what you do, you're going to take that 49, which is your x value, and plug it in here on the right. So is 49 greater than 500? Absolutely not. That is incorrect. Option 2, so 5 to the power of 3. Solve it like that. It gives you 125. Is 125 greater than 500? Nope. Option C, 2 to the power of 9. So you would multiply like that. It gives you 512. Is 512 greater than 500? Absolutely. So that is your correct answer. And let's just do option D. So 6 to the power of 3 would be 216, which is not greater than 500. Okay, so that is the correct answer here is option C. The ordered pair, -2, -1, is a solution to which of the following equations? Okay, so this is also a two-step problem. So first of all, what the heck is an ordered pair, right? So let's remind ourselves. So it's a pair, right, because we have two numbers, and it's ordered, meaning that it's set up in a specific order, in alphabetical order. So the first value, the 5 there in blue, is your value for x. And the second value is the value for y, okay? And notice that they're in alphabetical order. So x, and then followed by y. So if you look back at our problem, we're going to find, first of all, what are the values for x and y, and we already said that x is going to be -2 and y is going to be -1 from the equation, from the question. And then all you have to do is now take those values and plug it into those equations that they give you in the answers until you hit the right answer. Okay, so it's not difficult. It is kind of time consuming, but it's not difficult. So let's plug in those numbers. Excuse me. Okay, so if you plug in your ordered pairs into this equation, it would look like this. So 5 multiplied by -2 minus -1 is equal to -11. Okay, so remember that 5 times -2 would give you -10. And remember that when you have a negative number and another negative number, that becomes positive. Okay, so in this case, you get -10 plus 1. Is that equal to -11? Absolutely not, right? What you end up is what with -9 is equal to -11, which is incorrect. Second option. Again, plug in your numbers and then solve for that. You end up with -10 plus 1 is equal to -11. I beg your pardon, that is incorrect. This should be +10. My bad. Okay, so this is incorrect. I apologize. This number here should be 11, +11, okay? But this is also incorrect. okay, because positive 11 is not equal to minus 11. Option C, so you plug in your numbers like this, and notice that the expression changed, so now we have a positive value there. So that ends up being minus 10 plus minus 1. Okay, so minus 11 is equal to minus 11. That is the correct option. Okay, so option C. Okay, so Nick decides to get in shape for his upcoming wedding by investing in an exercise option during 5 months. He looks at 3 options to try to find the best price. Rick's Gym charges a $150 one-time membership joining fee and then charges $8 per month. The Men's Club charges $35 per month, and a personal trainer charges $100 for 4 months. Which option below is correct? Okay, so what you have to do here is, first of all, he's telling us that he's only going to be exercising for 5 months. So what we have to do is find out, first of all, how much each of these 3 exercise options cost per month. Okay, so let's start with Rick's. Okay, so as I said, first of all, find out how many months he's going to be using it, 5 months, and then find out the price for each exercise option, and then compare the 3 options. Okay, so let's look at Rick's Gym first. So Rick's, they tell us they're in blue. They charge a $150 one-time membership joining fee, and then $8 per month. So here in the top, we have the joining fee, $150, and then they charge us $8 per month, and we multiply it by 5 because that's how many months we're going to be using it. Okay, so that gives us a total of $40. All we have to do now is add these 2 fees, 150 plus 40 gives us 190 for Rick's Gym. All right, the Men's Club, it tells us they don't have a joining fee, so there's a 0 here, and they charge $35 per month, and we're going to be using it for 5 months. Okay, so you just multiply that. That gives you $175. And the third option was the personal trainer. So here, it's a little bit different because they're telling us he charges $100 for 4 months. So we have to find out how much he charges for 1 month. So the way that we do that is that we're going to divide those $100 divided by 4 months, and that's going to tell us how much he charges for 1 month, okay, which is $25 for 1 month. And then the second thing that we're going to do is that we're going to be using this option for 5 months, so we multiply that 25 plus 5 times 5 gives you 125. All right, so if you compare these 3 options, Rick's Gym, Men's Club, and personal trainer, you can see that the personal trainer is the cheapest option. And if you look back at the options in the question, the correct one would be D. Personal trainer is the cheapest. Okay, so a very similar problem. Erica is considering 3 job opportunities. At all 3 jobs, the weekly pay, which is expressed as capital P, is a function of the number of hours, which we express in lowercase h, worked during the week. If Erica works 24 hours in a week, how much more will she earn at job 2 compared to job 1? Okay, so the first thing is ignore job 3 because they're not asking you about it and it's confusing. So we're only going to focus on these 2. And in job 1, they tell us that she's going to earn $8.50 multiplied by the number of hours that she works. In the question, remember, they told us that she's going to work 25 hours in a week. So all you do is multiply that $8.50 an hour times 25 hours. That gives you $212.50. For job 2, same sort of thing. That's the equation there that they gave us in the question. All you have to do is plug in the 25 hours here where the H is, and you end up with $218.75. Okay, so what is the difference between these two jobs? There you have it. All you have to do is subtract job 2 minus job 1. That gives you $6.25. Okay, which is option C. A bag contains 10 blue, 5 red, 8 yellow, and 4 green marbles. If a marble is drawn at random, what is the probability that the marble is either red or green? All right, so let's remind ourselves again about probability ratios, and we kind of covered this in a question earlier. So remember that in order to set up a question like this, a probability ratio, this is what you would do. You would set up the number of favorable outcomes, or what you want to happen, divided by the total number of possible outcomes. So in this case, they are telling us that the favorable outcome is that you either get a marble which is red or green. And so you can get a red marble, and there's 5 red marbles, so you would add 5 plus 4, okay, which is the number of green marbles there. That gives you a 9. So that 9 is going to be the number in the top. And then possible outcomes, we said the number of possible outcomes, you basically have to add all of the marbles, okay, because that's the total, basically. So here all you have to do then is divide that 9 by 27, and that gives you 33%. Option D. Select the correct answer. Okay, so here they're giving you a polynomial. So let's quickly remind ourselves what this means. So when you're solving for polynomials like we saw before, and you have to divide, what you have to do is isolate the common factor that is going to divide by the numerator, which was the top number, and the denominator, which was the bottom number. Okay, so in this case, it's telling us what would be the common factor that divides by the numerator and the denominator. Well, it would be 25, right? Because if you divide 25 by 25, it gives you 1. So you could cross those out. And if you divide 150 by 25, it gives you 6. So your correct answer would be x to the power of 2 plus 6y, which is option C. Joe, Rick, Lisa, and Leanne contributed money to buy a friend's wedding gift. Lisa and Leanne gave the same amount. Rick gave $12 more than Lisa. Joe gave half as much as Rick. If the friends spent a total of $250, how much did Lisa give? Okay, so this is the typical problem that is super long and people get intimidated with. But don't get intimidated. It's just a little bit laborious and you have to go step by step. Okay, so in order to solve this, we have to add up what everybody contributed, right? So Joe plus Rick plus Lisa plus Leanne is equal to 250, which was the total cost of the gift. And they're telling us in the problem that Lisa and Leanne gave the same amount. So we don't know what that is, so we're going to say that Lisa gave X and Leanne gave X. Then it tells us that Rick gave $12 more than Lisa. Okay, so we said that Lisa gave X, which means that Rick gave X plus 12. And then Joe gave half as much as Rick. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to multiply 1/2 or 0.5 by the amount that Rick gave, which was X plus 12. All right, I'll put that in a little cheat sheet there in the top left corner. So all you have to do now is put all those numbers, plug in those numbers to your equation so that it looks like this. Okay, so let's solve first. Remember, we have to follow the order of operations, or PEMDAS. So the first thing that we do is going to do parentheses. So we're going to solve for Joe. So 0.5 multiplied by x plus 12 would give us 0.5x plus 6. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add up the other numbers. Okay, so you have the x from Rick, which is pink, 1x from Lisa, and 1x from Leanne. That gives you 3x plus 12. Okay, so that solves to that. And now what you have is a very simple algebra equation that you can solve. So how do we solve this? So remember that in order to solve an algebra equation like this, you want to isolate x, which is there on your left. So the way you do that is you want to get rid of that 18 by subtracting 18. Why do we do that? Because 18, that should be negative 18 plus 18. Okay, because when you do that, when you subtract 18 from the left, that's going to be 0. Okay, so if we have negative 18 plus 18, that will be 0. And then you end up with this. 3.5x is equal to 232. Okay, and now how do we get rid of, how do we isolate the x on the left side? Well, it's multiplying, so we have to do the opposite. We have to divide. So we divide both sides by 3.5, and that gives you 66.28. Okay, so Lisa paid $66.28. Kevin's total payroll deductions are 25% of his earnings. If his deductions add up to $402 for a 2-week period, how much were his earnings for the period? Okay, so this question is also pretty straightforward if you know this percentage rule, which we already spoke about before. Memorize this formula, guys. It's going to make your life so much easier. Okay, so the base, or the total, multiplied by the rate, or the percentage, is equal to the part. So in this case, what they're asking us is what were his total earnings? Okay, so what was his base? And they give us the rate, or the percentage, which is 25%, or 0.25 in decimals, and then they give us the part. Okay, the deductions that he got from his payroll. So all you have to do is plug these numbers into your equation. And what I'm going to do first is basically rearrange my formula. So it looks like this. Okay, so now all I have to do is plug in those numbers. The part, which is the deductions, which were $402, divided by the rate, 0.25. And that gives me the base total, or his total earnings, which were $1,608. Option C. Kelly has to repaint her 800 square foot apartment. She calculates she has 2,500 square feet of wall space to paint. She will not paint her ceiling or floor. If 1 gallon of paint covers 250 square feet of wall space, how many gallons will she need? Okay, so again, this is another one of those kind of long-winded questions where they're giving you a lot of information and some of it you don't need. Okay, so this is what we know. We know she's got that much floor space, 800 square feet, and she's got that much wall space, 2,500 square feet. And she's got 1 gallon of paint is going to cover 250 square feet. Okay, so that's the information they give you in the question. Now, it tells you in parentheses in the question, she will not paint her ceiling or floor. That means that you can ignore that piece of information. Okay, and now you can see that the question is going to be very easy. Because if we know that she has that much wall space to cover and 1 gallon of paint covers that amount that you can see there on screen, all you have to do is divide those two numbers by each other. That's going to give you 10 gallons of paint. Okay, so the correct answer is C. Matt wants to drive from the city to the beach 720 miles away. If he averages 60 miles per hour, how many hours will it take him to reach the beach? Okay, so we know that this is the total distance that he needs to cover, 720 miles, and we know that he travels 60 miles per hour. So all you have to do now is to figure out how many hours it takes him to reach the beach is divide that total distance by the miles per hour that he is able to cover. Okay, so if you do that, that gives you 12 hours. That's how long it will take him to reach the beach. A store has advertised the following sale: toothpaste 4 tubes for $5.25. How much would 5 tubes of toothpaste cost? Okay, so in the question they're giving us the amount for 4 tubes. And what we have to find out first is how much does 1 tube of toothpaste cost. The way you do that is you take the $5.25 and divide it by 4. That gives you $1.31. So that's the cost per tube of toothpaste. And then step 2 is that you're going to multiply the cost of 1 tube by 5 tubes. Like that. That gives you $6.55. Option D. A batch of salad dressing requires 1.5 cups of olive oil, 3/4 cup of lime juice, and 2/3 of water. How many cups of dressing can you make from this recipe? Okay, so again, this is one of those problems that is kind of messy, but it shouldn't be that difficult. First of all, let's remind ourselves of a few concepts. So you'll notice there that it gives you a fractions, and in the case of the olive oil, what it does is it gives you a mixed number. Okay, so it says 1 1/2. Okay, so what are mixed numbers? Well, basically they're made up of whole numbers, which is that number in the front, and then a fraction. And the second thing you have to remember about fractions, as we said, the top number is the numerator, bottom is the denominator. And whenever you add or subtract fractions, that bottom number, the denominator, remember, it has to be the same. So in this case, what they're asking you is how many cups of dressing can you make from this recipe? So what you have to do is you have to take, all the ingredients and add them up together. Notice that the denominators of those 3 ingredients are different. So remember, step 1 is we have to make the denominators the same before we can add these fractions. All right, so how do we do this? Well, first of all, we find a common denominator. So a number by which all of these numbers, can divide that number. Okay, so in the case of 4, 3, and 2, the common denominator would be 12, right? Because 12 divided by 2, you can divide 12 by 4, and you can divide 12 by 3. Okay, so for the moment, we're going to ignore that whole number, the 2 there in blue. So we're just going to work with the fractions just to make it easier. So we have 1/2, and we said that we have to, the bottom number has to be 12, okay, because that's the common denominator. How do we do that? Well, we multiply that half by 6 divided by 6. That gives us 6/12. All right, in this case, we also have to make sure that the common denominator, the number at the bottom, is 12. So in this case, you would multiply by 3, the top and the bottom. That gives you 9/12. And in this case, you would multiply 2/3 by 4. Okay, that gives you 8/12. And notice that now all of your fractions have the same denominator, okay, a common denominator, which means that you can add them together. Okay, so that's what your sum is going to look like. All right, so with adding fractions, the denominators, these numbers are going to stay the same. Okay, so the bottom is going to be 12. And these numbers, you simply add across. Okay, so you would say 6 plus 9 plus 8. Okay, that would be your answer. And of course, you have to simplify this expression a little bit more. So instead of saying 2 and 23/12, you would simplify that to 3 and 11/12. So your correct answer is C. The weather forecast predicts the following amount of rain in inches at the following times. What fraction of an inch of rain fell between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m.? Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to find out the difference between the rain that fell at 3 p.m. and the rain that fell at 9. Okay, so you would subtract those 2 numbers that you have on your table. That gives you 0.5 inches. Okay, and it's asking you what fraction of an inch. So all you have to do here is change 0.5 to a fraction, and that's pretty straightforward. It is 1/2. So the correct answer is A. Bill needs to borrow $7,000 for 5 years to upgrade his kitchen. How much will he pay in simple interest? Okay, so remember this formula: interest equals a principal times rate times time. Interest is how much you're going to pay on that money that you borrowed. The principal is how much you're borrowing. The rate is the percent you're going to pay, and time, how long you're going to have this loan. Okay, so in the question, and I'm sorry I didn't put this in the initial question, he's borrowing this amount of money at a 5%. Okay, I think I didn't put it in the initial question. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is the information that we have. We have that the principal is $7,000. The rate that he's going to pay is 5%. And if we change that to decimals, it would be 0.05. And then the time that he's going to borrow that for is 5 years. Okay, so all you have to do now is plug those numbers into that equation in bold. Okay, it looks like this. And that's the interest that he's going to pay on those $7,000. So $1,750, which is answer C. All right, we'll do another one just because I messed up that previous one. So it says, Ricardo borrowed $1,300 from his brother. He plans to pay him back in 11 months. If he pays 3.5% interest on the loan, what is the approximate amount he will pay back in 11 months? So again, remember, just drill this formula into your head. Interest is equal to principal times rate times time. What is the principal? 1,300. What is the rate? 3.5%, which is 0.035 in decimals. And the time that he's going to borrow, 11 months. So all you do, plug those numbers in to your equation. That gives you about $500 that he's going to pay back in interest, okay? Option B. Okay, folks, if you're finding any benefit from this channel, make sure you subscribe and or share with friends on your social media pages. All right, question 41. The local theater opened in January. Sales steadily increased until what month when it dropped? Okay, so this is an example of a line graph. So let's remind ourselves a little bit about line graphs. So as always, remember that you have to look at the axes to know what you're looking at. So in the y-axis is telling you the number of tickets that were sold per day. And then in the x-axis, it's telling you the months, okay? So you can see that they started in January, and then it went up in February, went up in March, and then you can see that there was a big drop in April, all right? Okay, so the answer is C, April. In which year did both companies receive approximately the same amount of online orders? Okay, so this one, again, you would read it the same way as you did with the other line graph. And notice here that it's kind of tricky because there's one point there where both companies basically sold the same amount. And another point there. So which one do you choose? Well, if you were to draw a line down from here to here, it's not telling you which year. We're going to guess it's 2011. But if you draw a line from down to here, it's 2014. That's very clear. Okay, so if we look at the options, the answer options, you can see that there's no 2011 as an option. Okay, so the only possible answer would be 2014. So this point right there. Okay, so it's the time that they were both selling the same amount. A line passes through points at coordinates 1 and -3 and 4 and -1. What is the slope of the line? Okay, so this is what they're asking you. Basically, they're telling you that there's a line, and they're giving you 2 points on the line. And what they want to find out is the slope or the inclination, so to speak, of that line. Okay, and what they're giving you are these numbers which are called ordered pairs, as we saw before. So remember, in ordered pairs, the first number is the x, the value for x. The second value is the value for y. And in this case, because they're giving us a line, and they're giving us 2 points on the line, we're going to have two ordered pairs. So the first one will be the value for x1 and y1. And then if you look at the second ordered pair, that's going to be, the first number is going to be x2 and y2. Okay, so the slope of a line, as I said, is the inclination, or what is sometimes known as the rise over the run. So how far up it rises, or it goes up, and how far it runs horizontally. And the formula, the mathematical formula is this: y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus y1. All right, so I've left your little cheat sheet there on the square in pink. So all you have to do now is figure out what values are which. So the first coordinate pair is 1 and -3. Your x1 value would be 1. Your y1 value would be -3. The second ordered pair is your x2 value would be 4 and your y2 value would be -1. All you have to do now, plug those numbers into your equation like that, and that's going to give you 2/3. Okay, so that is the slope of the line, which is option B. All right, a little geometry here. So Luke just built a fountain in his backyard. He needs to find out the circumference of the fountain so that he can lay a tile border around the edge. What is the circumference around the, sorry, it should read around the fountain, not around the money. Okay, so if you can see here, they're giving you a circle and they're giving you a value there for the diameter, okay, 39.37 inches. So I believe that you have this formula available when you take your test, but anyway, the circumference of a circle, this is the formula. So circumference is equal to pi, which is 3.4 multiplied by the diameter. And we already have the diameter, which they've given us in the question, right? So all we have to do is plug that number in and multiply it by pi, which is 3.14. That's going to give us the circumference, which is 123.62 inches, which is option C. The scale on a map reads 3 centimeters is equal to 175 kilometers. How many kilometers would be represented by a distance of 7.2 centimeters? Okay, so here what you do is that you have to set up a proportion like this. Okay, so we said that 3 centimeters is the same as 175 kilometers. And they're asking us what the distance would be like if we have 7.2 centimeters on the map. Okay, so what you have to do is you multiply across like that. So you end up with 3x is equal to 1,260. And now all you have to do is solve for x, and that will give you the distance in kilometers. Okay, so what you do is divide both sides by 3 as you would normally. That gives you 420 kilometers, which is option B. All right, so a little bit of statistics. So what is the median asking price for homes in Martinville? Okay, and they're giving you 7 homes and their asking prices. Okay, so here, what this is, just a quick reminder, sometimes people think that the median is the mean, okay, or the average, and it's not. The median is the middle value, okay? So what you have to do is take the values, the asking price for these 7 houses, and you put them in another list in ascending order, okay, starting with the cheapest house, which is $95,000, to the most expensive house, which is $137,000. And then the median is the middle value, okay? So that would be the median value 4, okay? 105,800. Okay, next question. We're going to be using the same table, but I'm going to ask you a different question. I'm going to ask you in this case, what is the mean asking price? Okay, so the mean, this is the arithmetic mean, okay? It's the average. So in this case, what you have to do is that you have to take the total price of all of the homes, add them up together, that's your total, and divide by the number of houses, which is 7. And that's going to give you the average asking price for those homes, okay, which is option A. During a 40-hour work week, how many hours does a clerk spend on filing? All right, so let's quickly remind ourselves a little bit about circle graphs. So this part here, remember, is the title. That's telling you what you're looking at. This thing on the right is the legend, okay? So it tells you what each of the slices of the pie corresponds to. So if you look at the section in red, that is preparing documents. So this person spends 20% of their time preparing documents. And the question asks you, how many hours do they spend on filing in a 40-hour work week? Okay, so the first thing that you do is that you look at the graph and you see that filing, which is in yellow, is 7% of the time. Okay, so 7%, we change that to decimals, is 0.07. And they ask us in a 40-hour work week, how much is 7% of the time? Well, all you have to do is multiply those 40 hours times 0.07, and that's going to give you 2.8 hours. Okay, so that person spends 2.8 hours filing every week. The price of a phone was dropped from $750 to $720. By what percent did the price drop? Okay, so here the first thing you want to do is you want to subtract to find the amount of change. Okay, so 750 minus 720 is going to give you 30. And then step 2, you're going to divide by the original amount. So you would divide 30 divided by 750. That gives you 0.04. And if we change that to a percentage, that is 4%. Bob placed a $35 order online. How much will the total price of his order be, including shipping and handling? Okay, so what you have to do here is, first of all, find out what the shipping and handling price is based on the item that he bought. So he placed a $35 order online, which would be in this category here, okay, this second one. And the total price that he's going to pay is the price of the item he bought, plus the shipping, plus the handling. Okay, so that's the price. Then the shipping, we said, is going to be this amount, right? So it's going to be 3% of the item that he bought. Okay, so we would multiply $35 multiplied by 0.03, which is 3%. That gives us $1.50. And then we also have to add this number here, which is the handling. Okay, so we have to add that $2.25. Add all these numbers together, and that's going to give you the total, which is $38.30. All right, well, if you got to the end, I wanted to give you one more bonus question. Question 51, David paid $30 towards a $213 dinner bill. If the remainder of the bill has to be split among 7 people, how much should each person other than David pay? All right, so again, whenever you have these kind of long problems, just clean it up, okay? First thing we're going to do is we're going to take that total dinner bill, which was $213, and subtract the amount that David paid, which was $30. That leaves us with $183. Okay, and then it tells us in the question that the bill has to be split among 7 people. That does not include David, okay? So all you have to do now is divide that $183 bill by 7 people. That gives you $26.14. Option D. Okay, folks, well, that's it. I hope you found some value in this video. Let me know in the comments below. If you did and you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and also hit the notification bell so that you know when new videos arrive. Best of luck with your exam. Happy New Year. Take care.